welcome to Money and You. This video series is an initiative of the Financial Services Council that aims to grow your financial confidence and well-being. This episode is for any and all women in New Zealand who invest or may be interested in getting into investing. And before you go, that's not me. If you don't think of yourself as an investor, you might be. If you have KiwiSaver, you are an investor. So keep watching. We're going to be looking at some questions like how good are we at investing? Why do women invest or not? And some of our investing behaviours as well. So I'm really excited to welcome Helen Skinner, the head of emerging wealth at Craig's Investment Partners, here today. And Helen and I have had a few conversations about this topic already. And so I know, Helen, that you're very passionate about empowering women to grow their wealth. And you just have so much knowledge on this topic as well. So it's really great to have you on the show. And my first question for you is, how did you get into investing, and why are you so interested in this topic?
I got into investing by I just fell into it, really. I started when I was way back in a little teenager. I started going to uni, and then I actually ended up finishing after 6 months and started working in life insurance. And falling into a job like that meant that I had exposure to thinking about, at quite a young age, sort of future me, what I was going to look like. And it also meant that there was some investment parts to it, and it led me down the path of working for fund managers. And that whole element meant that I got to understand not only why investing was important to what was going to happen in my future, but also what I could do with my money. And I learned that any money that I'm putting into investing is actually going to make a difference, or going to be put towards companies and organisations that are making big decisions in our sort of future. So, and I had a lot of experience through my time working for different fund managers that look at what the impact is of the money that they're investing on behalf of their clients. So, so I really got interested in how does the world tick, and what small part is my money making or doing towards the future of us all. So yeah, I got really impassioned by it all.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, obviously, not all of us get into it at quite a young age. So there are some people that, I guess, start a bit later in life, or maybe are still wondering if it's something that they want to get into. We published some research at the Financial Services Council in December 2021, and it showed that women in New Zealand, we rate our level of investing knowledge and experience lower than men do. And I'm not sure if that's a surprising finding to you or not, because we also know from other research that was done, there's a study from Fidelity that came out that showed that when women actually do invest, we're pretty good at it. So are these feelings of inadequacy, I guess, are they justified, or are we just really hard on ourselves and think we're terrible at it?
I think it's kind of two parts. So we all suffer from the classic imposter syndrome. So we think that we are not going to be what people think that we are. So, I get it the same. You say that I've got a lot of knowledge, and I'm sitting here thinking, really? I don't know. But I guess, 20-something years is quite, but we all do suffer from it. And I think there's an element of just not having the confidence in what we're doing. But there's definitely research that shows that women don't invest as often as men do, that we are often the ones who are controlling household finances. So we're really good in that kind of element, and we're already in the driving seat, but we tend to save more, but invest less. And it's something that we do need to change and work on. And as you were saying, women are great at it. There's a whole load of research out there that shows that we have natural tendencies to be really good at investing. So we do things like we are less likely to we're kind of more risk adverse. So we think about a lot more about the risk and what our money is going to what we need it for and how long we need it for and that sort of thing. So we're less likely to invest in things that are quick wins or are sort of the latest fad, and that's actually a really, really good thing for us. There's the myth that we are spenders and not investors, is what I was talking about before. So the whole conversation around the pretty woman shopping kind of spree that we are seen in and sort of as publicised in the media, that women love to go out and shop and spend. But actually, yeah, we do save money. We just think it's lacking the confidence to actually go in and invest it. But as you say, if you're in KiwiSaver already, you're already doing it, and a lot of us are doing it without thinking about it. We are more cautious, and we do lack a bit of financial knowledge. We definitely find that at Craig's, that when we have women come to us, we don't have a New Zealand education in finances in schools, and most people learn through either through doing or through friends and family. So, but the good thing for women is that we tend to want to get advice. We stop and ask for directions. So that's a really good thing when it comes to investing, that we're always going to get the help and assistance. And talking about FSC, about the data that comes out from the great surveys that you guys do. There's a survey, I think was it the year before last, the advice survey, and even in the latest piece that you've released is talking about the number of people or number of women that get advice. There's around 60% which haven't had financial advice, but there's also around 60% which worry about money daily, weekly, monthly. So, and we've found that over a few years of this kind of data that it tends to be kind of the inverse. So I think we've got the tools as women to be able to be really good investors. We've just got to make sure that we're using them. Yeah. To your question around time and when to do it, there is never a perfect time to invest, and there's never the perfect investment. So we just have to make sure that we're doing it. So at any point to start getting involved and start to educate ourselves and talk to people about investment is a good time to do it at any point in your life stage.
It's really interesting. It's quite heartening to know that, we're quite good at it and we can do it, and it's just a case of getting started most of the time, right? And asking for help. Yeah, asking for help, yeah. And the getting started bit, it's all around compounding returns. So it's all around, the sooner you put it in there, the more likely it is that your returns are going to earn returns on themselves, sort of thing. So, and it's also just making sure that whatever you're investing in is right for you and is personalised to you. We know that there's a lot of people out there who have a KiwiSaver, but have never looked at what fund it's in or never looked at the type of fund that it's in. And we all have different goals and needs, and particularly as women, because we tend to think about money in the basis of what we can do with it. We don't think about it as being a pile of gold sitting in the corner. It represents something to us. So we all need to make sure that that whatever we have with it, whether it's savings, property or investment, it all needs to be right for us and be personalised for who we are. So make sure that it's not too risky if we don't feel like we want to have risk, or that it's the right level of risk for us and for whatever the time frame is whenever we'll need that money. So yeah. On that, in terms of types of investment, so we know that women are, from our research that we've done at the FSC, we're getting more involved in, I guess, newer and emerging forms of investment. So things like, crypto and NFTs and things like that, but not to the same extent that men are. It seems like, at least those who identify as male, they're more likely to jump on the bandwagon of things like crypto than we are. And is that connected to our sort of more inherent cautiousness? Are we less likely to look at something new and go, I'm gonna jump on that? Or do we sort of sit back and wait?
I think it is a bit of the cautiousness element. Yeah. There are certainly women out there who are early adopters and will head into this sort of stuff. But I think there's the element of that it's all around the confidence element, with imposter syndrome and with that sort of the risk side, we do tend to be more cautious in how we're approaching it. And that doesn't mean that we won't get in there and that we'll miss out on opportunities. It just means that we're just going to take our time, and probably, that kind of approach tends to be better in the long term. So I think we'll get there. And I think as things become more mainstream, we'll see a lot more. But yeah, and we're talking here about, women doing one thing and men doing the other. It's really what we're talking about is kind of the masculine, feminine tendencies. So it's not necessarily, a specific gender kind of thing like that. I think about it as being kind of yin and yang, that you have sort of yin tendencies in the way that you operate, or yang tendencies, and that sort of defines a person. So yeah. But I don't think the margins are huge when it comes to particularly crypto and engagement in crypto between the two genders. It's just that, we do tend to be more on that kind of cautious side. We know that if we lose some of that, it's particularly when we're involved in household finances, sometimes if we have money that's at risk, we realise what that means in the real world. So it's just, as I say, what that money is going to do for us. So, stereotype, for me, that may be one less pair of shoes, but it is, that is the way that we think about it. So it means that we are a bit more cautious.
Yeah. And then in terms of, you mentioned that we as women tend to think about what the money can do for us. What about what the money can do for others and for the world, and these kinds of more responsible investments? Because there's not a huge gap, but it does seem from the research we've done that women are slightly more likely to actively seek out investments that are ethical and responsible. So have you seen anything at Craig's in terms of the women that are coming to you and investing? Do they seem more interested in those kinds of investments, or?
Yeah, we are definitely finding that, both across the investors and also across our advisor group as well. So it does, and as I say, I think it is around that element of what's my money and my investments doing, and where is it going. When we're talking about ethical and responsible investing and ESG and all those elements, they're all slightly different, and we kind of tend to put them in a big pot. So, the broader picture is around responsible investing, and it's, at its base, it's basically saying that when you invest, you're thinking about environmental, social, and governance issues, which everyone should really do as a baseline, right? You're thinking, is the company that I'm investing in, does it have a good board? And what's their policies for maybe for diversity on their board, or what's their turnover in board members? And that's just making sure that it's vibrant and it's got the right kind of thoughts around that sort of leadership in the firm. Your social stuff is, how well do they treat their staff? How well do they treat the community around them? And all of these things, if something goes wrong in those areas, it's going to affect the share price. And so you need to think about it. And environmental is the obvious one, right? And then when you're thinking about ethical, that's when you've got a manager or an investment type that applies an ethics basis to it. So it's saying, I don't think we should put money into these different industries because we don't think it's an ethical thing to do, or we're going to put more money into other industries to try and be a bit more, promote what they're doing. So it's more of a judgment call on those kind of investments. But across the board in all of that, we're seeing, as you say, it's not a huge gap between, but it does tend that women adopt it more. And I think that is because we do tend to think sort of broader, it's the age-old adage of the caveman going out and hunting his deer, and we're the ones wondering where are the kids, and so we can go around and see all the different elements of it, and that's exactly the same thing when it comes to investing. Yeah,
I'm really interested in that, actually. If we could kind of go back and kind of delve into that behavioural stuff a bit more, is that, and I guess, you did say it's not black and white. There's obviously this grey area, and it's not, women behave in one way and men behave in the other. But do some of do some of those things come into play when it comes to investing in terms of, these things that are happening in our brains? Are we sort of tending to look at, the bigger picture more often than
I think
generally
so.
men are?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a behavioural scientist, so, but when I'm seeing some of the research that's coming through, we definitely know that, as I say, that testosterone plays a factor. We know that testosterone is something that that gives you focus and energy and gets you kind of in the game, and that's a good thing in a lot of ways. It gets us out of some difficult situations, but it also means that you have a higher tendency to go into high risk options and to chase the next big investment. And sometimes that works, but more than often, not so much. So we know that plays into an element, and I say there's lots of research around this, so it's not something that I've done or that Craig's has done, but it's definitely an element towards it. Yeah, that makes us really good investors as part of it. But as I say, it's it's more. I more want to promote the fact that we have really good capabilities behind us to make us really good investors and play in the field with the others, rather than it being, a competitive thing of we are better than the boys. It's it's just making sure that we know that it's not just their game that's out there.
Yeah, no, I like that way of thinking. Instead of competing with each other, it should be, everyone is able to do this. We all can do it. And we did an episode of Money and You with the Financial Markets Authority a while back, and they had looked at these different types of investing behaviors, and there was trying to remember the four of them. It was planters, speculators, opportunists, and I think it was dabblers was the last one. And there's all these different types, and it's not that one type is necessarily good or bad. It's just people have different behaviors, right? And it's about what you were saying before. It's what works for you and your risk tolerance and all of that.
Yeah, it is. I think there was FSC research that came out, and Blues Day, I can't remember if it was this year or last year, on micro-investing platforms.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came out, and I think you're on the panel for it, Russ, was talking about age and stage and gender when it comes to why people are going into micro-investing platforms. And it's really, starting out and investing. And that for women, it was that they wanted to learn by doing. And for the men, it was more they wanted to give it a go because it was going to be fun. So it's the same kind of outcomes. It's just slightly different thought processes for going into it. We definitely find that here that, and I think when you were talking about sort of client experiences, that regardless of the initial intention as to why people talk about investing, we find across the board the feedback we get, particularly from women, is why didn't I start earlier? This isn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. And actually they're feeling a hell of a lot better about their well-being, just have made some step towards their future. And that's some research that came out of the US showed that it doesn't matter what your age, your financial capability, your education, just making a start towards investment, no matter what the amount is going to make you feel better about yourself. So it's, and I think that was part of the research, wasn't it? The amount of people that are affected by finances and thinking about it and affecting their well-being as well. It's quite scary numbers, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's, I guess, like you say, it's taking the plunge, isn't it? It's like with a lot of things, you kind of, maybe when you're going to a job interview or anything that is a bit nerve-wracking, you build it up in your mind, but once you do it, it becomes easier. So maybe it's like that with investing as well.
I think it is, and I think there's a bit of a fallacy out there that investing is just for the wealthy, and it's just for those that are older in life. And as you say, KiwiSaver is the classic. If you're in KiwiSaver, you're an investor. You've just got to make sure that you are actually contributing, and that it's in the right sort of fund that's for you. And knowing who your fund manager is and what's their style of investing, and do you agree with what they're doing, or are there other people out there that might do it better for you? So yeah, it is just a case of just doing it. Yeah. We also find that we still have cases, particularly in the old generations, when there's women that haven't been actively involved in the finances. They're coming to us at times of trauma, and they're making key decisions around who's going to help them with their finances and their advice. We're talking divorce and death, and that is a really hideous time to be having those conversations and making that kind of call. So I think, if you're starting off, as I say, no matter what, how much it is, or just make sure that you've got a relationship with somebody. And advisors, we have advisors from those in their 20s right through until older, all over the country. So from Gore up to Kirikiri, and it's all men, women, they're all different types and sizes. So it's making sure that, because it's quite a personal relationship that you have with this person, that they're the right person for you. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm interested in this age and stage discussion, because there was something that came out of the research we did into women and financial well-being, that I'm keen to get your thoughts on. And it was just interesting when we looked at how women rated their investing knowledge and experience. It sort of seemed to be tracking in a certain direction, but then once it hit the 50 to 59 age bracket, suddenly women in their 50s rated their investing knowledge and experience lower than all other age groups, even 60 plus and the youngest age demographic. And so I'm wondering what's happening in our 50s that might be affecting confidence when it comes to investing. Does it come back to that? The death and divorce, is that kind of life stage, or is there something else going on?
There is an element of that. Yeah, I think it's also there's probably a couple of other things that's also a time of change for a lot of women, and I'm in my late 40s, so I'm heading in that direction. And there is a confidence loss that comes at that point anyway, with all the other changes that we have to deal with that none of us ever talk about. But the other element is that we all go through times and we realize what's going to happen in the next decade for us. So in your 30s, and you're thinking about family and house purchases, and that's you're in that world of, how do I build stuff up in order to make my nest egg. In your 40s, you're starting to rebuild your finances up after you've probably had a massive outlay in those early kind of years. And your 50s is times when you're thinking that you're going to maximize your earning potential to get to retirement. And I think in your 50s, you end up in that stage where you're starting to realize that retirement is looming, and it's actually, you lose confidence because there's a fear factor of, how do I know that what I've got for retirement is enough for me and enough to support me and my family? And it's a real pivotal time to make sure that you've got the right plan in place. I think all of this, when it comes to confidence and how we're feeling, is around confidence. It's around security, and it's around control, really. It's us having control of our futures. And so I think at that kind of age, there's a realization and a confidence drop that happens with all those different factors going on, and how are we going to actually support ourselves. So I think it's perception more than anything else. Yeah. But we need to, if we can, to encourage people, and that's one of the things that we like to encourage, is make sure that when our fun, and our friends around us is kind of making sure that we're all having conversations about this. And I think this is really important that we're having this now to talk about it, because we have traditionally not been great at talking about money, and it's a personal thing, and it's a confidence and fear thing. And as women are becoming more independent, finance seems to be the last kind of frontier on that. So if we can talk about our own journeys and how we've got into investing, or even what we're doing with our KiwiSaver, and any plans that we might have for the next kind of 10 years of ourselves, then it helps each one of us, and it will definitely help women in that sort of stage of life as well to start having those conversations.
So what would your tips be for women out there of any age, of any stage, who are interested in investing or sort of learning a bit more about it? Are there, I mean, obviously talking about it is one first step, right? But are there other kind of simple steps that people can take to just start and take that plunge like we were talking about before?
I think yeah, there's definitely talking about it as one of them. Taking the plunge is the other, just to start, and part of that, as I say, is looking at your KiwiSaver. And if you don't know who your KiwiSaver provider is, they've probably emailed you a statement. So have a look through your email for KiwiSaver, or the Inland Revenue can tell you who your provider is, because we find a lot of people don't even know that kind of level, let alone what it is that they're actually investing into. And it's also making sure that however you're saving, or whatever your investment sort of strategy is, to make sure that you're doing it for two parts of your life. So make sure you've kind of got a rainy day element in there. And again, amounts don't matter. It's just putting little bits aside, because that I think so there were some government stats that came out this year that said a third of us didn't have 1 month savings. So if we were out of work for a month, we didn't have enough to cover ourselves for that. And you think what's happened in the last couple of years with COVID, I mean, that's quite scary. So just starting off to have that kind of rainy day element, but also thinking about you in the future, what's it going to look like, and doing both of them just is a big thing. And then the last thing is just being confident about it. Just keep reiterating to ourselves that we are really good at this. This is not just a game for the guys, and we do have natural skills which make us really good at investing, and we need to capitalize on that. So it's just taking the deep breath and saying, right, I've got this, and going out and doing it. Yeah.
Great. I love all those tips. Just go out and do it and take the plunge. And I assume, if you're really unsure and you feel like, because I imagine for some people they've never invested before, or never even looked at their KiwiSaver, it's quite a scary thing. And I imagine that that's where financial advice might come into play, or there are plenty of resources out there that people can access as well. You don't have to do it on your own, right?
Not at all. And quite often advice is part of the package. So if you, particularly with your KiwiSaver, if you just ask them about advice, quite often they will have people that you can go to, as we do. So we run two of them. And the other one is the Sorted website that has some awesome tools. It's got budgeting tools in there, and they're just really not scary at all. It helps you look at KiwiSavers in a really basic kind of way. And as you say, talk to your friends about it as well, So, but yeah, Craig's, we have advice as well as products. So, and we have advisors all over the country, and they're really not that scary. So it's true. It can be a big kind of challenge, but we just have to drive through that age-old thing that, that advice is some really big thing that you have to get. And it's not, it's just having a chat to someone and saying, this is what I want to do with my life, and what do you think? So it's a free chat over coffee.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Helen, for sharing all your tips and all your insights with me today. And hopefully that's helped some people out there think that, we can do this, and we're good at it. And Smash it. We're awesome. Yeah.